Hello, everybody. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Like in the case of our actual featured author, we're all over the world. Welcome to Book Passages, Conversations with Authors. I'm your host, Paula Farmer. If you're joining us live, welcome to the last day of February and also the last day of Black History Month 2023. Although it's definitely not the last of us, Book Passage, uplifting diverse voices and stories. Today's featured book, which is so great to have for the end of the month, end of Black History Month, it's Blackgirl on Mars, and it is a radical memoir that chronicles the author, Lesley-Ann Brown's 2 years worth of travel searching for home. As she travels across the U.S. during Black Lives Matter protests and the COVID-19 pandemic, and then to Trinidad and Tobago, Brown tells her own life story, as well as writing about race, gender, sexuality, and education, and ideas of home, family, and healing. It's both a radical political manifesto and a moving memoir with a great cover, by the way, which
Thank you.
Right now, which I feel really bad, but it's a fantastic cover. There we go. And it's mostly, though, about family and finding what matters to you, your place in the world. Lesley-Ann Brown is a Caribbean American writer, born in Brooklyn with roots in Trinidad and Tobago. During the 90s, she worked in New York City in publishing and freelanced for a variety of publications such as Source and Vibe magazines. In 1999, she moved to Copenhagen to become a mother and organizing poetry events and very involved in her community, but always thinking about home. And her work has been published in the US, throughout Europe, and Latin America. She's actually going to be joining us from Denmark, not Brooklyn. And also joining us is her conversation partner and friend, Elisa Donovan. For over 20 years, Elisa has been part of iconic pop culture phenomenon, starring in such roles as Amber in the iconic movie Clueless. She followed that up with a turn on another pop culture sensation, the television series Beverly Hills 90210.
These things are very contrary to who I
know. So she's appeared in other films, and she published a memoir, Wake Me When You Leave. I love that title, and I'm so happy to have both of them with us. With that, I'm going to turn it over to them.
Great.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you so much, Paula. Well, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us today. And I truly hope this will be an inspired and authentic conversation. Just to give you a little bit of background on how Lesley and I met, we met in undergrad New York City in the early 90s. And 90s Manhattan was undergoing a lot of change at that time. The gentrification was happening very quickly and very intensely. And I was living by Tompkins Square Park in the Lower East Side, and that part of Manhattan was very much a part of that shift that was happening. And we both went to a very liberal and progressive college, the New School University, and Eugene Lang was the undergrad. And I think that we probably each had that experience had a different impact on both of us, and which Lesley can share some of that as we chat today. She was one of the only Black students there, and still somehow within those constructs and that environment, we came from two very different backgrounds, and all of the ins and outs of what that entails to really know someone or get to know someone when you come from such very different places. And but here we are nearly 30 years later, and we have she's one of my dearest, and I just adore you. So before we get started, I just wanted to read what I had to say about the book, because I feel like I can be more articulate in this moment about the book. So this is what I had to say about the book. Blackgirl on Mars is a rare book. Equal parts education and introspection, Brown's lyrical writing is so rich and vibrant that it almost makes you forget the very deep, guttural, and violent lessons within its pages. As both a scholar and a true student of the world, Brown imbues Blackgirl on Mars with her intelligence as well as her heart. The journey of healing is not an isolated affair, she says poignantly and pointedly. By weaving her own personal history into our history as human beings, all inhabiting this same precious earth, she entices the reader to face their own lineage and the part we have all played in the collective trauma that remains, and how we are all always searching for home. So, welcome, Lesley. I'm so happy to be here, have this conversation with you. You know, Lesley and I, this is sort of just indicative of our relationship. We have very long conversations. We always have. So now we're just doing it about this beautiful book. So I thought maybe we could start with, I had the question of, you know, as I said, this book is really powerful and deep, but the writing is so lyrical and beautiful. And so I'm curious just about the process. Was that intentional? Is that just how it comes out of you? Or did you feel like it needs to sort of have both those things in order to be digestible? Or what's your process?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you, Lisa, for agreeing to be here. And thank you for your beautiful introduction and your words and your support. You're my girl. So going back to the writing, I think for me, it's a lot of how it comes out the first time, and that's usually a result of turning something around in my mind over and over again. So I liken it to sort of like smoothing rocks. You know, you ever see that machine that smooths rock? So I liken it to that. So many times things come to me in a very poetic. I mean, the other day I was thinking that, you know, life is swimming in poetry. So I sort of like, that's the way that I relate to life. And then I also grew up with music. My father was a musician. There was music constantly in my house. I had hundreds of records on my own as a child. My father would just, you know, give us all the ones he was done with. So for me, it's just part of who I am and how things take shape in my mind. Yeah, ideas.
Because a lot of that, even the music, I feel like probably a lot of that music didn't necessarily have a ton of lyrics though, right? We're talking about like jazz and things, or?
Well, okay, but the joke is that when I was a kid and we inherited, my father would give us all the records he was done with. So all of the records that he was done with were basically like Broadway musicals.
Oh.
So I grew up listening to West Side Story even before I saw the movie, My Fair Lady, Breakfast at Tiffany's, like all of these very big show Broadway musical. Right. I listened to them over and over again with my own narratives attached to them. I knew nothing about the real shows, but so I have that sort of that arrangement, the way that those things are arranged, those musical numbers. Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about the, you know, I feel like are the person that really, I mean, we read a lot of James Baldwin at school, but I feel like your real, your admiration and love of his work is really what made me care about it even more than what we were actually being taught, which was significant. But So that's had his work has had a big impact on me and continues to as I go through the world and realize, oh, even more so now people are starting to talk more about his work. And so is there some, there's a part of the book where you talk about being the, the white people whisperer, which is a right? And it's funny because, in a certain way, obviously I can see you as that too, right? It's like this crossover, but I'm wondering if you want to talk a little bit about that, either his influence or how you feel about that kind of occupying that place.
Yeah, well, the white person whisperer is a joke because I have no patience trying to explain racism to white people. That's the joke. Like that's what I was telling. It's like we got into a really big fight when we were in college. And by the way, I wanted to say that our college experience, I mean, we had such a radical education.
Yeah.
The books that we read, some of the professors that were there. So although there wasn't as many white liberal colleges there weren't a lot of Black students. Some of the classes in the literature that we had to read was really very radical, and I'm really thankful about that. But so yeah, that's sort of like the irony and the joke. It's that I am so unable to not get uncomfortable when the subject of race comes up. And one of the things that I really wanted to sort of convey in the book was that science has caught up with this, and science is now telling us that, hey, yeah, of course, words do hurt. There's the body of work out there that is telling us that, yes, certain conversations are charged, certain words are charged, these. So now I understand why I physically feel the way that I feel when even because you'd think like, okay, even with my ex-husband, my son's father, I love him. I loved him. I was in a partnership with him, a parent, but when it came to race, I just, I really don't have patience trying to explain it to people, which is awful. I mean, if you're my student and you're my class, that's different. Yeah. But adult, that has been something that I've just always really, and that was also part of the burnout that I experienced because for many years here in Copenhagen, I would go someplace that, where they were having a debate, and I would just get so upset that I would just, I get very Black church when I go out, like, and when people are saying things that I think are offensive, I'm that person who will say, in the middle of a talk, and they're like, no, you can't, Yeah. So that whole white person whisperer thing it's a joke.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's something that is, we can get into this later too, down the line, but, that revelation is, it's really interesting to me why it's so hard for white European people to just examine that. Like I find it upsetting that it's so hard. It's one thing for something to be sort of a new idea or realizing, oh, this happened, and having to kind of just acknowledge or be accountable for that is painful. Like it's painful, but it's necessary, right? And there's a real distinction between accountability and acknowledgement and like shame and saying it's your fault. Like it's a whispery, it's a very amorphous, hard thing.
It's interesting. It's really interesting because I've been thinking about my relationship to someone in my family. And when I try to discuss certain things that there's certain ways I've experienced things with this person is not capable of listening to me. They just get very defensive. It's, it's kind of, I don't like I'm going to be careful when I use the word narcissist and narcissism, because I think it's overused and I don't think we really understand it. I think people have narcissistic traits. And psychologically, it is suggested that narcissistic traits and narcissism is actually a self-defense. So, I mean, there's lots of layers to it, but I would just liken it, the white fragility is that. Mm-hmm. It is that inability. I mean, and we can experience that in so many ways. If someone tells me, hey, I don't like the way that you're talking to me, and I'm not particularly self-aware at that moment, I could be like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So I think, those are the things that are the dynamics that are at play.
Yeah. So there's one of the many beautiful lines in your book here. Lineage can be a map to our humanity. I love this so much. And, because to me, and then I want you to say what it meant, but when I read that, I feel like I'm very moved by that, because I feel like it connects, that includes pain, that includes the joy, that includes, all the things. It includes things we are conscious of and unconscious of. Mm-hmm. And that's how we can identify as human beings and how we can connect, right? And I just think that's beautiful. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure, and thank you. And also, I just feel like it's such a great opportunity for us to kind of put ourselves in others' shoes. Yes. And I guess as an actress, that's probably something that you're familiar with. I mean, there's great power, and there are even therapies that involve us taking on the, right?
Yeah.
So, so for me, I've always just sort of intuitively, I was born asking questions. My grandmother was like, what is wrong with this girl? Why is she asking these questions about all these people? I was just always really interested. And I think for me, one of the things that has happened to me in the last few years is that, I found out, I always knew that my father's mother's family was indigenous, to Trinidad. Well, no, that's not true. I always thought they were Indian. So, which of course they are, but it's a different type of Indian. And no one explained to me, when I saw them and the physiology, everything was just very interesting. And I was just like, but again, I just thought they were probably from what we call a Madras in Trinidad, which is like a dark-skinned Indian supposedly coming from Madras. So I didn't understand that. And then it's only within recent years that I understood. It's like, oh no, they're Caribs. And then understanding that, okay, wow, they're Caribs. So that means that I have a connection to Trinidad and Tobago, because up until then I was like, okay, so what am I? Am I the the descendant of enslaved Africans, indentured East Indians, Europeans, but there was something about understanding that land that my family is from, and that I had spent some time in, and that my ancestors were there, and also understanding that, okay, so there is a part of my lineage. I mean, going anywhere across the globe, I could say this, but for this purpose, I was just like, wow, there is a part of my lineage that really met Europe on these terms of
right.
So understanding, for example, I came across the information today where they were saying that mental health is tied to oppression. Like, it's not a psychological or chemical, this is the theory. I'm not, I'm reading into it. So it really helped me, understanding my father, for example. I'm like, okay, so because I met someone when I went to Trinidad to bury my grandmother. I met a man who knew my father, and the first thing he said to me was, "Oh, your father was so and so. He was the one with the Aboriginal family, so he was known,
wow,
as being Carib, of Carib ancestry." So that was very interesting to me to be able to relate to Trinidad that way, and also to understand what that lineage was born under and struggling through. And I mean, it's because part of indigeneity, when you think about the Americas, is this erasure to the point where they're being called Indian. And I'm thinking, oh, from India.
Yes, right. Yep.
So that's an example.
This actually brings me to the next thing here. When you say the journey of healing is not an isolated affair, how do you heal if you have neither language nor tools? And I feel like that speaks to what you're saying about that this just erasure, right? So first of all, it's like there can be a lack of awareness of even why I need to heal, then the deeper level, like all of the, so I am really curious about this process, because I think that healing is like, there's a universal aspect, but it's also a very individual affair, right? And super nuanced and for everyone in any scenario. So I'm curious about what your feelings are about healing in general, and like your own healing. Like how do you begin to, and are we always, is it a continual, is it a never ending process?
I mean, I can only speak for myself, and I think it's definitely a never-ending process. I mean, as long as I'm alive, I hope to be intentional about my healing and be mindful around it. I do think that the current socioeconomic structure kind of impedes communal healing. But, there's this really interesting dance that we do as individuals and as people who are part of a community. I just, last weekend, I bumped into a writer. She's Angolan and a poet, and her name is Ayunin. And we were talking, and I was with another writer, Sabita, and we were having this conversation about sometimes when we're going through it, we don't want to be in contact with people. So, for example, I just learned, like, when cats are injured, they would hide it from you because, of course, they don't want to come off as weak out of nature.
Right.
So it's really interesting. So there's these certain aspects. Like, I was in Oakland to support a friend who is really not doing well, and the state that this person was in, I knew that if this person could have a space where they could just be and not worry about, the everyday concerns that we have to because of capitalism, that person would heal, right? But instead, that person found themselves in a situation where there's capitalism running, knocking on the door because there are bills to pay. They're renting from someone. I mean, it's just like this whole stressful situation where healing can't happen, because it doesn't feel like a safe space. So I think, in order to heal, you have to feel safety, and you have to, of course, feel it within yourself, and you have to be able to feel it like with the community. But I think these are things, I think some people are very lucky and blessed and have them. And I think there are a lot of people who just don't have it. And a lot of us are learning what community looks like. How do we tap into it? How can we be good community members? I feel like a lot of us have to learn this.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I think we all do, really. And I think that's also one of the other big, themes of this book is, to me, and obviously whenever I say these things, you can tell me I'm wrong. Please do. But is really about finding home and identity. And I think everyone, in some ways we're always searching for that, I think. And then we get one form of it, and then we either are settled with that, but then, desire more, or understand, oh, that's actually not home. I thought X was going to be home, but really it's a deeper thing, or it's different, and I'm curious about that there like this idea of wanting to acknowledge all of our the lineage, but how do you do it without what am I trying to say? Like kind of the balance of shame, and that I think many things, certainly in American culture, there is a lot of there is a lot of shame that is put on many things, and healing is one of those things that it's only been in the last 5 years, maybe not even, where mental health is a discussion that you might actually, it's like a buzz term, that you would even hear on the news or read in a magazine. And, to me, that's just astonishing, right? That we are just talking about those things now. And which just says that it's not what we value, right? So it's like we're almost, it feels often like there's this shifting of the plates that's happening and I feel that living here now, and I'm wondering if when you come back to the States, anywhere, and it's probably, I'm sure it's different in different states and different parts of different states, but as a general kind of feeling, do you feel more of a sense of home in Denmark? Do you feel it in the States? Do you feel it in Trinidad? I get the sense that you feel like, certainly from this book, that even getting closer to those roots of
well, that's a great question, because one of the things that happened to me during that time of travel that I cover in my book is that I really, especially when I was on the West Coast, especially when I was in Oakland, LA, I mean, when I landed, the first stop in my book tour was in LA, and it had rained, and I don't think I had ever actually been in LA after it rained.
Yeah. It's like a big deal.
It was a completely different place. I was like, and then I could just, and that was like how I entered this, Turtle Island. And then, so something kind of like the smell, I saw some of the same plants as Trinidad, it's so hilly. And I mean, I was just like, so, something familiar was kind of like, stirring in me. And then I went to the East Coast, and then I ended up coming back. I came to LA a few times. I came back to Oakland. And then I realized, at some point it hit me. I was like, I could walk to Trinidad from here. Like, I literally, if I wanted to, like, you could literally walk to the Caribbean, and then it just really started. I had this funny experience when I was in Oakland, where I was laughing at myself because I did this TEDx talk, and in the TEDx talk, I talk about this idea of which is an acronym for women in total control of herself. Right. So, and my friend Debbie from Brooklyn gave me that, because, that was what the kids were saying back in the day on the streets. Right. And I was laughing because I was like, I don't believe I said that on stage, because sometimes I'm just like, not the most. And then as I said that, and as I had that insight, there was like the earth shook, like literally when I thought that. And I'm just saying that because it was just like, I really like the last time I was on Turtle Island, I really was like, I am a child of the Americas. Like, I really feel it. I really like, this is my home. I don't have to be there all the time. I don't have to be anywhere all the time. That's my whole thing. But I really definitely, I mean, when I went, I didn't write about this part, but I did write about when my friend Jason and we drove to the border.
Yeah.
And when we did see the people that, Trump was talking about, and the caravan and all this crazy stuff, when I did see them, they looked exactly like me. Like, they had the same look, it was very like, and I was just like, okay, this is really interesting. Yeah, I was just like, they look like me. I mean, these were people who were, because, we have that. We have the indigenous, we have the African, we have the European. I mean, the Americas is, kind of like one of the connecting points. I mean, in the globe, I guess everywhere is a connecting point. But for me, in this particular story that I'm living, it was just, so yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like a connection to the Americas in the sense that, you know, when we talk about the global north and we talk about the global south and we talk about the infrastructure of markets and social, you know, all of that stuff, I definitely, you know, I come from an area that is definitely has been very shaken by colonialism. Not, you know, I don't want to paint it like, I mean, you'll never hear me say that something good came out of colonialism, but I don't want to paint like, you know, this, whatever. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to, I realized there were questions here and I was ignoring them. So I wanted to encourage people to ask questions and reassure you that I will actually ask them now. So there is one from Alex who wants to know if you were living in Europe during the entire pandemic and the Black Lives Matter protests, and if so, how was that for you to witness that going on while you were in Denmark? I know some of the answers to this, but other people.
Yes. So I was on lockdown in Brooklyn when that happened. And it was just, it was really interesting because I really, the whole lockdown in New York thing, because we were like, the epicenter. And so everything was just very surreal, really very, I mean, it was too extremes. It's like 1 minute you can't go anywhere and and the next thing people are protesting outside. It's like, okay, where do I go with this?
Yeah.
So it was just, And then while that was going on in the States, something else was popping off here in Denmark. There was like a whole, similar stuff going on here. I just think it's really interesting, and this is not to to inject any kind of like ideas of conspiracy, but I do really like to remind people that 2019, the year before the pandemic, the lockdown, it was the most active politically, globally. Like people were really taking to the streets. This was no joke. Yeah. So it's interesting to see, where we are now because of all of the events that have unfolded since 2019.
Right, because you could, argue both sides that was that activism. I mean, I agree with you completely that 2019 was really the start of a lot of political activism on both sides, or all sides. And you could say that the pandemic, just really ignited that even more, or it also shut it down somewhat because people couldn't, it impeded that. But then at the same time, it's like it made it bubble and build even more. So it is an interesting.
For me, I think, having an incident that sparked the whole Black Lives Matter during a protest during the pandemic, I just think nothing is more American than having, unfortunately, lives sacrificed. I mean, even when we're in, supposedly this big, national lockdown, that even that we can't check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to pivot a little bit, but sort of go back to where we were. I'm interested in this idea about that the issues that we endure in our own families impede our ability to support one another. And I think that seems very kind of basic upon first reading, but really it actually is, it speaks to so many things about actually how we can be present for one another, and how much our families really do inform, for better, for worse, for bigger, for smaller, how we operate in the world for the most part, certainly initially, and as we grow and make our own decisions, et cetera. But it really informs how we begin to see the world. And I think it's, I'm curious how much you think about that in terms of, I know that you do, because your family is always woven into everything that you write. But I think there's a lot of I don't know. I don't know. Is there acceptance that has to happen? I guess that's my question. Is there acceptance that has to happen in order to move through whatever we might feel, the lack of what our families gave us, or do you think that we have to, or is it irrelevant?
I mean, where I am personally with this is that I accept people for where they are, but if it's also not in line with the person that I am working on being, because I come from this culture where you are supposed to respect adults. And if you don't, this is my generation, I don't know what it's like now, but if you don't, you can get physically punished, when I write about that in the book. So I have liberated myself from this idea of, I don't respect people just because my culture tells me I have to respect them. Right. I don't respect people who are seeing me as an individual and listening to me and saying what my needs are. I'm also trying to be like that with other people as well. I mean, I'm not perfect. So for me, I have to say, if I'm dealing with someone in my family and we have a relationship, it's because it's a reciprocal relationship that's built on supporting each other, becoming better people. If I don't have that relationship with you, whether you're in my family or not, we don't have a relationship. Yeah.
So I want to make sure we talk about this, because we're not running out of time, but we're moving along here in time. There's a lot about plant allyship and your connection to plants and to your experiences with ayahuasca, and I just want to make sure that we cover that. One, so that people understand that is a big part of this book, but I'd love to have you just speak a little bit about the importance of that to you or your discoveries with that.
Sure. Yeah, because I was thinking, I was feeling, so, so ayahuasca, I heard the other day, it was the punchline to a Chelsea Handler joke. So I said, oh, poor ayahuasca.
Right. Yeah. Once it's become a joke there.
What does Chelsea Handler know about doing ayahuasca? Right. I don't see it, but I'm just, but anyway.
Yes, because here it has become something that people,
exactly.
It's like a dismissing type of a.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's our tendency as a culture. It's like we don't, and that's the whole point. I mean, what I'm scratching at in my book is actually this attempt to sort of decenter myself and decenter this human experience and try. I mean, I don't succeed because there's a really long way for me to go. And again, this is also part of my healing and a lifelong journey where I'm learning, because it's the same thing as asking white people to think about their relationship to whiteness and their relationship to non-whiteness, to blackness, right? So I look at it like, okay, I'm this person who has been indoctrinated to think that humans are supreme, right? That humans are the center of the narrative. And that's just simply not true, right? It's just not. That's the way that, it can seem that way. So I kind of landed at this ayahuasca ceremony, and I was, you know, I was interested in ayahuasca because I had like, you know, come across it with people using it for addiction, et cetera. I have a few addictions. I have a love affair with tobacco. You know, maybe I drink, maybe I'm, you know, on my phone. There are things that I think, relationships that I have to certain things that I've been mindful about. So I wanted to go take it. And for me, and people do this thing where they do it very often. They do it and they party. I don't understand that, because I mean, I thought I actually, the reason why I haven't done ayahuasca again is because I told, like, I mean, because this is the state that I was in. I was like, okay, if I survive this, I promise I'll never. That's how it was.
Deal with the deal with the gods.
It's really, yeah. So it's really like this. It's really like, I was thinking the other day, because I'm writing a piece about it now, but I'm trying to write about it in a different way. But it is really like those magic potions that we play, like we imagined when we were kids, or we read it in stories, right?
Yeah.
So for me, what it did was it just really, you know, people could laugh and they'll be like, oh, well, you know, your heart was really hard. And yeah, my heart was really, really closed. I'm still working on opening it up. A lot of us are. And that was like really amazing medicine for that. Like, seriously, like I really was able to get in touch with things that I didn't know that I needed to get in touch with, you know, and it really brought to the surface what was important to me. And I needed that. I just really needed it. And it was really interesting because I had also done it in a room full of dames, which was really funny. Because that meant that it was just me and another woman there. We were the only women of color, the only two people of color there. And usually, you know, that could be like a little bit weird, but it wasn't, because everybody just came to do this community healing. You talk about community, right? Yeah. So it was, you know, because there was like over 20 of us there. So that was pretty, you know, magical. And then also for me, it helped me come to some peace with myself, because I had so much anger towards whiteness. I had so much impatience. I mean, I was just like really, you know, just over it. And for me, the only way that I can have a life of a decent quality is that I cannot harbor any kind of hatred or resentment. Like, I can't do that, because it's me that I'm hurting. It's not other people.
Right.
So that also really helped me to understand, to just find that place in my heart where I'm not just dismissing people or because they asked a stupid question, or, you know, yeah.
So do you think that, because you also talk about, aside from the ayahuasca, just other plants and things of the earth, and
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so the herbs, whether it's like cooking or plants or flowers, you know.
Yeah.
This has been something that you have been close to for a long time, though, right? That's not new. Or do you feel like it has become deeper in later years?
I think like in periods when I'm doing really well, I tend to like have more, I'm more in relationship to plants. So during the pandemic, one of the markets that didn't fail was houseplants.
Right.
So that did really, so everybody was just going crazy. So when I got back to Denmark 2020, October 2020, my flight was like canceled all these different times. And when I got back, I just got into this whole thing where, I mean, also partly inspired by my travels, but I was like, okay, I just want to have like all these tropical plants. So I went crazy. I just like bought all these plants and stuff. And I just like, I mean, I've always been attracted to plants, but I just feel like, you know, one of my biggest challenges in life has always been, besides writing and reading, has always been like identifying like, okay, this I really like, so I'm going to prioritize it and make room for it. That's always been a challenge for me. Mm-hmm. To just so I've had periods in my life where I've been in close relationship to plants, and then sometimes you know, I don't, but I definitely know now, like when I look at that pattern, like when I'm in relationship to plants, I'm doing way better than when I'm not. So yeah, you know, like for me, one of the things I talk about before I left Denmark was like my nervous system was completely shot. One of the things that definitely helped me was chamomile. I just, you know, just again, you know, I don't know if it's like this magical potion fantasy thing that, you know, I kind of also get a kick out of. But I just enjoy, like, you know, you have a tea for, you know, you need to relax, you need to, you know, you want something that makes you a little alert, your stomach is upset, drink this. I mean, I just, it's amazing to me.
Yeah. I mean, certainly. Okay, I have a one of these like questions that I always, in my own way, when I'm asked them, it's the question of like, what would you tell your younger self that you know, like something that has no answer, where you're like, that's a really stupid question, but I'm going to ask you sort of a question like that. So there's a hummingbird outside my window. That's my dad going, it's a stupid question. My dad was passed away many years. And we've talked a little bit about this, you and I, but what is your idea of, first of all, do you consider yourself an activist? And what is your idea of effective activism, whether you consider yourself one or not?
Okay, so I'm not an activist in the sense of like, you know, community work and stuff, because when I was doing it, I was just so like, my energy was just so like, I was just like, ah. So I had to remove myself, you know, I had to really, because I'm telling you, like my nervous system, because what was happening at the time actually is that people were getting together here back when I started, like, you know, hanging out and getting out in the circles, you know, people, we were now starting to come out and we were, you know, addressing these really difficult subjects that no one really had a vocabulary. No one really, you know, it was just, we were just in this hotbed of like triggers. We didn't even have a word for trigger in those days.
Right.
So it was just like constantly, like I would just go someplace and you know, someone would say something and my blood would just boil and I would just like, you know, curse somewhere out, like New York style, blah, 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 blah. So, no, I'm not an activist like that, but I definitely know that because of the subject matter that I write about, that makes me an activist, because, you know, I was thinking the other day, I've been thinking about like poverty a lot, you know, like it's just such a taboo thing to talk about. Like people just, like, you can't talk about poverty, you know, but I do write about it. And I do, because that's when I enter the States, you know, that is kind of like the socioeconomic class that people that I know, some of them are in that class. I mean, I'm in that class, you know, I'm just doing it in a different way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in that way, because it's just sort of like, I mean, I definitely am not writing fluffy stories.
Right. I mean, I think it's also that what, you know, how we've talked about it too, that maybe we need to kind of change the narrative around the idea of that. Again, you know, we like, certainly in American culture, we like to really like put a tag on something, you know, like activist, or you're a thing, you know, as if just saying that means that it's effective in some regard. And I don't know that that's true. True. There's another question here. Anita would like to know, are you familiar with Tricia Hershey's book, Rest as Resistance?
Yes, totally. Yeah, the Mat Ministry, definitely.
Yeah, she said she asks because the principles go well with your relationship to plants, especially in dealing with racism and social anxieties.
Thank you. Yes, no, I'm definitely going to get into that book for sure. I follow the Instagram, and the work is phenomenal work and necessary work. Yes. Yes.
And then,
the Mat Ministry.
Someone also asks, we did sort of cover this, but maybe you have something else to say about it now. Per the introduction about the book, what is home to you? and how has the sense of it changed over the years?
So I have like in like biography or whatever, and if you thought you might come across one where you're like, I live in my own body, or she resides in her own body. And that for me is just kind of like where I'm at. Like for me, my goal is to always be, present, because part of the legacy, if you have, had adults put their hands on you, if you've been violated, so many things. One of the first things that happens to you is that you just really disconnect from your body. And it's only recently I've been really understanding that and really paying attention to it. But, when I was a kid, I got so good at disassociating because I had to do it. It's like I have to be really careful now because I just could slip like that.
Right.
So there are certain things that, so for me, I want to be like, no matter what happens to me, I'm able to respond. It's so funny because I always think, this whole thing about being responsible, like the word responsible is being able to respond, So that's my whole thing.
Yes.
It's like I want to be able to respond because it's part of the thing that happens. I mean, and it's not just if you grow up with abuse, because this could be like, I'm speaking for a lot of people who've had many different experiences. Sure. But when you get trapped, like we in the West, when we get trapped into this fear, actually I'm reading a really good book about that right now. It's called The Fear, and it's by Christiana Spence. And it's really interesting because she's really like deep diving into like, this, how control we are in our lives, whether it's this real fear of not being able to pay our rent or the existential, so many things, right? It's just like the pandemic, they're terrorists, there's a recession, there's this, there's that, there's, so yeah, really being able, I think this is something that they call it somatic liberation, somatic, I forget what the word, abolition or so. I can't remember. There's so many great words for it, but it really is in our body, the violence, the oppression, the worry, all of that. It's true. Our thoughts they matter. They turn into matter.
Yes. Yes. And I think, that's something. It really being at home in one's own body is like a radical concept, because it's something that we don't really talk about or think about much, but it's in fact probably the single most important thing to institute a happy, joyous life. And I think about, my daughter's 10 now. You met, and she's a big thinker, and she has a lot of anxiety sometimes, and she's very intuitive. She is very connected, and she's very empathic. And I see that, we live in a big city and we live in San Francisco. That's not something that's necessarily like it can be. I see that it can be heavy on her because not everyone around her is the same. I am that way, but the whole world sort of, and she has plenty of, we are fortunate. We have resources. We have a home, we have the kind of the basic things that allow someone to feel safe. And, but you can see how one, if you are sensitive at all, it's a lot to carry. And so I think that, that would be a radical class to, maybe they're teaching that at Lang right now, how to be at home in your own body.
But I have to say that one of the things I've been really noticing, I've been really thinking about, like even with my own body and my own posture, is like try to imagine what someone who grew up in the forest, how they walk around, and then think about how we tend to walk around, And I think that helps me a lot, because there's this way that, we have, we're so distanced from, the utility of our body, like how do we utilize our body? I mean, how do we, and I think to me, that part of coming home is just really like understanding like, okay, I have this back that, I mean, remember in Oakland when I saw you, my back went out, you know, just really understanding your body's limitations. How can you strengthen it? How can you, you know, how do you walk? How are you holding your head? How are you, I mean, all of these things are just part of like, and then, you know, being in an extremely like white space sometimes, like, you know, one of the things I was going through, I don't feel it now, but I just felt so self-conscious, and that really, you know, I wasn't aware of it, but it really impacted how I was carrying myself. So this is the thing about really being home in your body.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And being, and having that sort of, being comfortable in that space, then it's like we really are your home then, wherever you physically are, because it's kind of safety, like a real and there's this North African writer, and I can't remember his name, but he was talking about like in his language, I think they were like Bedouins, I believe, but he was saying that in their language, the word for home is the same word for death. And I think that's really interesting because one of the things that I'm really like, you know, I pay attention to is this idea that, you know, we need to move. Human beings have always moved. Like, you know, so there is this kinetic energy that we get from, and I feed off of it when I'm traveling, et cetera, that I think it's very universal. So there is, you know, so for me, it's not just, and also I wanted to say before when you were talking about home, like one of the things that really hit me when I was stuck in Brooklyn for the pandemic, I was with my mom, was her smell. I was like, you know, like her smell, that is like, I was smelling my mother before, you know what I mean? So there's something about that smell that I just almost get so intoxicated by. I just want to like my mother's smell. Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been so amazing. This has been like a wonderful hour. Is there anything else that you any closing things you'd like to say, or I want to show everybody who hasn't seen the cover of the book. This is the beautiful cover that we're talking about.
Yeah. Thank you.
I actually have a quick question for both of you before I let you go.
Yes.
Because you both have written memoirs. Obviously, we're celebrating Lesley-Ann's memoir today. But Lisa, you have one too. And I'm just curious, are there writers of that genre that have influenced you, influenced your writing, or do so now? And also, what about future projects for both of you? Would you continue to write in that vein, or are you comfortable going into different genres? And also, obviously for you, Lisa, you're an actor. Curious about those type of projects versus the writing projects.
Yeah, I'll answer quickly so we can finish with Lesley. Autobiographical writing in this way is probably the thing that feeds my soul the most of anything, aside from being a mother. So I feel like this is like the way I am supposed to, what I'm supposed to be doing. And so that this book, Wake Me When You Leave, the film is in development. I wrote the screenplay for it and I'm going to direct it. So we're in the process of getting the financing. So that's very much a labor of love. And so I definitely want to write another book. I am not sure which. I'm really comfortable writing in this place because I write from a really deep place, and I don't know I don't know if I could do that with fiction, or I suppose I could. Some parts of, and maybe you could speak to this too, Lesley, at certain points when I was writing the book, I had to imagine that I was writing fiction so that I wouldn't that I could be pure enough with what really happened, because you don't want to, at a certain point, it's why I changed the names of the people in the book aside from my parents, because I felt like I needed the emotional freedom to not feel like someone was going to be on my shoulder saying, are you sure you want to say that? You know, that's not really going to happen. So, but I don't know if you ever, so yeah, that's like a long-winded, I don't know if I answered your question.
Now, Leslie, a question or a question?
Well, you know, yeah, I mean, I write many different genres. I have tried my hand. I definitely want to write different genres, but I'm really into like memoir writing. I have read a lot of memoirs. I'm really bad at remembering authors and titles. I read. That's part of my my practice. And then my friend, I have this brilliant friend called Simi Dali, and then she told me she is, you know, all well versed in academia, and she was like, you know, what you're doing is called autoethnography, which really excites me. So this whole idea that I can actually take this anthropological approach of self-study through my writing. So I have to say, I think that's kind of where I'm going to push it, because I've always kind of wanted to like be in school and do all of that, but I never really, I didn't do it. You know, I'm on the outside doing my thing.
Yeah.
So I think that would just be the best kind of like, you know, outside of the profession kind of breakthrough.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, you're both doing it right. And thank you, Lisa, for holding up that book, because it is a beautiful cover. We have plenty of copies available at Book Passage at both our locations, be it in the city or in Corte Madera, our flagship. So please, audience, live and later in the archives, if you're interested, we encourage you to support not only your independent bookstore, but also these authors. And feel free to come in safely in person, or feel free to give a call or go online. We have booksellers that are very eager to help you process the sale of Blackgirl on Mars, as well as any other titles you may be interested in. We've got you covered. Thank you to these two. Thank you to both of you. You were great together. I love when we get friends paired up.
Yeah, this is terrific. Thank you so much for asking me. Thanks for having us both. And Leslie, I adore you, as you already know.
I adore you too. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this and for giving me your time. I appreciate it. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Zach.
You know,
thank you, everyone who came.
We learned earlier this is actually your launch. So thank you for letting Book Passage.
Yeah, totally. Yay.
Many, many more. Much success. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Paula. Take care.
Bye-bye.